Okay, picture this. You've worked hard for, what, 45 years? You put in the grueling hours, you play by the rules, and you finally cross that finish line only to discover a completely terrifying truth. You simply cannot afford to retire. It sounds like a total nightmare, right? But for a rapidly growing portion of the population, it's actually becoming a hard, mathematical reality. So, welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking one of the most significant yet silently growing financial emergencies of our time, the retirement crisis.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly did the richest country in the world end up with a retirement crisis this severe? Millions of hardworking Americans are quietly heading right toward a massive financial cliff, and the structural safety nets that we honestly all used to take for granted, they are fraying. We're going to look at the hard data, the massive economic shifts, and most importantly, the practical, real-world steps you can take today to protect yourself, absolutely regardless of your age.
Millions. And to be clear, we aren't just talking about some tiny fraction of the population that, forgot to save. We are talking about tens of millions of Americans who currently have little to absolutely zero retirement savings. A staggering portion of the country literally has no financial safety net to fall back on when their working years finally end. It's a systemic issue. And to figure out how we got here, we really have to look back.
Section 1. How the dream changed, past versus present. The American dream of a comfortable retirement has fundamentally shifted right beneath our feet over the last few decades. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer contrast. In the past, workers relied heavily on defined benefit pensions. Basically, your employer guaranteed you a set income for life. You combine that with much lower healthcare costs and statistically shorter retirements, and the math was, well, relatively simple. Retirement was often a brief, relaxing epilogue. But look at the present. We've completely shifted to defined contribution plans like 401ks. The risk has been transferred entirely from the employer directly to you, the employee. Add in skyrocketing inflation, massively expensive healthcare, and the fact that we're all living much longer, and suddenly funding a 30-year retirement is a profoundly complex challenge. It's essentially a multi-decade financial marathon that you are fully expected to self-fund.
Let's move on to Section 2, the math behind the crisis. When we step away from the theory and look at the actual average retirement savings by age group, a massive shortfall emerges completely across the board. Whether you're looking at millennials who are just trying to build a foundation, Gen Xers in their absolute peak earning years, or baby boomers who are right at or near retirement age, the average balances are frightfully below what's actually required to sustain a comfortable lifestyle. To put that into perspective, verified data shows that half of all households headed by someone aged 55 to 66 have zero retirement savings. Literally nothing. People just aren't hitting their targets, but it's really not just because they're spending recklessly. There are massive macroeconomic pressure points that are just destroying savings rates right now. We've got inflation aggressively eating away at our purchasing power. We have a severe housing affordability crisis, making it practically impossible for many to ever build equity. Healthcare costs, they're rising way faster than general inflation. Meanwhile, wages for so many people have essentially remained stagnant when you adjust them for the cost of living, and that's leading to a massive surge in rising debt, particularly credit card and student loan debt. Look, when all your money goes strictly to surviving today, funding tomorrow feels flat out impossible.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Social Security problem.
So, for decades, Social Security has kind of been the bedrock of American retirement, right? But it is currently under immense pressure due to one absolutely vital metric, the worker-to-retiree ratio. Simply put, this is just the number of actively working individuals paying taxes into the system, compared to the number of retirees drawing benefits out of it. Social Security is entirely a pay-as-you-go system. Today's workers are paying for today's retirees. And this brilliantly illustrates how severe the fundamental demographic problem is. Back in 1940, shortly after the whole system was created, there were about 159 workers supporting each single retiree. Fast forward to today, as the baby boomer generation retires en masse and birth rates have steadily declined, that ratio is creeping dangerously close to just 2 workers per retiree. 2. The system is just straining under this demographic weight. The trust funds that help cover the gap are being heavily depleted, which means that without major policy changes, future benefits could face automatic cuts.
Let's ground this with Section 4. Real life, John's warning.
Meet John. He's 67, he worked incredibly hard for 42 years, and he managed to build up some modest savings. But his math is breaking right in front of him. He has a fixed monthly income, mostly from Social Security and small distributions from his nest egg, while his expenses are just rising in real time.
His property taxes and insurance keep going up, his out-of-pocket healthcare costs are rising every single year. And to cover that gap, he's actually had to begin leaning on credit cards, which, as we know, carry compounding interest. John's fixed income simply cannot keep pace with his escalating expenses.
Now, compare John's current, very real struggle with the financial reality of an individual who started investing early. See, John delayed his investing until his 40s when he finally felt like he had extra money. But the early investor? They invested a much smaller amount of money, but they started in their 20s. Thanks to the absolute magic of compound interest, where your interest earns its own interest over decades, the early investor built a massive cushion that can absorb inflation, whereas John is living on a razor's edge.
Section 5. The Future, Millennials and Gen Z. If you're younger, you are facing a uniquely difficult uphill battle. You have student loans, sky-high rents, and extreme economic uncertainty. Honestly, it feels easier to just put off retirement planning entirely. So the crucial point is this: waiting just 5 years to invest dramatically reduces your ultimate retirement wealth because of that lost compound growth. Time is the one single asset younger generations have that older generations literally cannot buy back. If you lose your 20s and 30s to delayed investing, you are losing the most powerful multiplying years of your entire life.
All right, let's talk solutions. Section 6, Saving Your Financial Future. We aren't here just to talk about the problem. We are here to actually fix it. Building a rock-solid financial foundation really comes down to 3 basic steps. Let's move to and see how this builds. Step 1, build an emergency fund. You cannot invest for 30 years from now if you can't survive a blown tire today, right? Step 2, capture your employer match in your 401k. That is literal free money. Or make sure to max out an IRA. Step 3, invest in broad, low-cost index funds. Look, you don't need to be a stock-picking genius. You just need to own a diversified piece of the entire economy and let time do the heavy lifting for you. Beyond those basic steps, there are highly actionable strategies that can completely change your trajectory. Diversify your investments so you aren't wiped out by one bad sector. Aggressively reduce unnecessary high-interest debt, because frankly, no investment reliably beats the 25% interest rate of a credit card. Commit to increasing your financial literacy. Read, learn, truly understand your money. And as you get older, consider delaying Social Security if your health and situation allow it, because your monthly benefit permanently increases for every year you wait past your full retirement age, all the way up to age 70. The systemic issues in our economy are incredibly real, yes, but these personal, daily choices, they're what actually dictate your future.
I love this thought. The greatest investment you'll ever make isn't in the stock market. It's in your financial future. This whole retirement crisis is terrifying, mostly because it relies on the assumption that you will do nothing differently than the average person. But you aren't the average person. By educating yourself and acting intentionally, the preparation you do today will dramatically change your tomorrow.
So I want to leave you with this final, vital question. What step will you take today to secure your tomorrow? Will you open that IRA? Will you actually sit down and review your budget? Will you finally start learning exactly how compound interest works? The clock is ticking, and your future self is entirely relying on the decisions you make right after this explainer ends. Make them count.